Tucker Carlson just unleashed on his Republican colleagues in a recent segment after he found out that some of the Republicans have been dumping stocks. And it wasn't because of information they got from the television. Let's talk about it. So, Tucker Carlson called for the resignation of Richard Burr and other Republican senators after he found out that they were dumping stocks amid the coronavirus crisis. Now, this wasn't like they went to the television screen like you or I, or did some reading in The Economist or the Wall Street Journal and decided, well, right now would be a good time to dump some stocks because everybody's dumping stocks right now, right? No, that's not what happened. See, this is a little bit different because, well, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Burr is on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Not only that, but he is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. But I'll let Tucker talk a little bit more about that.
So you may have seen the news reports this afternoon. The chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee sold more than $1 million in stock in mid-February after learning how devastating the Chinese coronavirus could be. He had inside information about what could happen to our country, which is now happening, but he didn't warn the public. He didn't give a primetime address. He didn't go on television to sound the alarm. He didn't even disavow an op-ed he'd written just 10 days before claiming America was, quote, better prepared than ever for coronavirus. He didn't do any of those things. Instead, what did he do? He dumped his shares in hotel stocks so he wouldn't lose money. And then he stayed silent. Now, maybe there's an honest explanation for what he did. If there is, he should share it with the rest of us immediately. Otherwise, he must resign from the Senate and face prosecution for insider trading. There is no greater moral crime than betraying your country in a time of crisis. And that appears to be what happened. We'll have more on the story tomorrow.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. What you have just heard is that the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee wrote an op-ed 10 days before he dumped his stocks saying that, well, we were better prepared than anyone to deal with this crisis. In fact, in other words, he knew it was coming. He was convincing people that we were going to be okay, which of course, if you understand how the stock market works, it's speculative, it's speculation. It's the hope that markets or a certain market will be strong, and therefore you would invest to ensure the strength of that market while of course profiting if that gamble comes into fruition. So he was trying to protect the strength of the market that he was invested in. That's what just happened. This article from the Daily Mail UK elaborates a little bit. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr said Friday that he relied on public news reports when he sold off up to 1.6 million in stocks before the coronavirus crisis caused markets to crash. Specifically, I closely followed CNBC's daily health and science reports outside of Asia, outside of its Asia bureaus at the time, Burr said in a statement. Understanding the assumption many could make in hindsight, however, I spoke this morning with the chairman of the Senate Ethics Committee and asked him to open up a complete review of the matter with full transparency. Oh, you asked one of your friends to investigate you? Oh, that's just so sweet. That's so nice of you, Richard Burr. Both the left and the right were outraged by ProPublica's report that Burr had offloaded $582,000 and $1.56 trillion of stocks holdings in February. Obviously, this is well before anybody in America knew how serious this was going to become, because we had been told by people like Richard Burr that everything was going to be okay. Now, what's even more interesting about this is that even Ilhan Omar is agreeing with Tucker Carlson here. Now, although I agree with Ilhan Omar and Tucker Carlson for calling not only for Richard Burr, but all of the Republicans who were well aware of this information to resign and step down, we have a problem. See, You know us. We like to look at both sides of the aisle because we are under no disillusion that one side is somehow more altruistic or more morally virtuous than the other side. Remember, we like to keep it real around here. So, one of our researchers is Robbie Yeager. You can follow him at RobletOFire. And one of our contributors found this little gem. It seems GOP Senators Burr and Loeffler weren't the only ones making large stock transactions in the weeks before the stock market plunge. Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein dumped anywhere between 1 million and 5 million in Allergen stock in February 18th, 2018. So, I think it's important that we are consistent here, right? We have to congratulate Tucker Carlson and say, you got to tip your hat to a man like that. Tucker Carlson's weird, right? Tucker Carlson, he has certain lines that you just should not cross. And it seems to me that those lines seem to be any type of violation of the Constitution, using your personal office to gain power of some kind, or taking advantage of your position when no one else could possibly take advantage in a similar way. Like, that seems to be his line. And of course, his anti-war stances. Now, I just showed you all from Robbie Yeager. Dianne Feinstein dumped millions, more than Richard Burr has. And if I recall, don't quote me on this, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Dianne Feinstein's actually on the Senate Intelligence Committee too. Usually they're lifers, if you will. Where I'm just re-verifying before I tell y'all that. Usually the lifers, like Dianne Feinstein, Chuck Schumer, they usually are on the Armed Services and Senate Intelligence Committee. Okay, so no, he's not. She's not on the Senate Intelligence Committee. My apologies. Yeah. She's not on the Senate Intelligence Committee, so my apologies there. She's not on the Senate Intelligence Committee, but let's be honest. She's in the Senate. She has access to the files. They get briefed. And as long as something isn't top secret, she will hear about it. That's how it goes. February 18th, that was before the stock market plunge. That's a fact. We were not properly prepared for this. The people were not prepared for this. And what's even more frustrating is before any legislation was introduced by the Senate, before any legislation was introduced even by the House, ladies and gentlemen, we were not, like, they were able to purge their stocks. They had enough time to call their stockbrokers up. Hey, I need you to make sure I keep this money because it's about to go down. Have you received a check from anybody? I know one thing. Some people have even been laid off. Restaurants have closed. Hotels have been converted into medical facilities, which may or may not be more profitable depending on what their situation is. I know in California that's the case. And actually, I want to congratulate Gavin Newsom on doing so. That's genius. But nonetheless, they were given ample time to prepare financially. And we, quite simply, were not. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but this sounds like insider trading to me. And when I look into my dictionary of the two things that Martha Stewart has ever done that got her in trouble, insider trading was one of those things. So is it different once again because an elitist politician does it? Is it different for the Democrats if Dianne Feinstein does it? And is it different for the rest of the Republicans, not named Tucker Carlson, if Richard Burr does it? Or because they know there's a bipartisan consensus on corruption, will they just look the other way on all accounts and pretend like it didn't happen? Unfortunately, I'm willing to bet on the latter. It sucks, but it's reality. But at least you know that if you were one of the ones invested heavily into the stock market, listen, people, you didn't do anything. If you mess up and sold a little bit too late, listen, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't like you predicted the market wrong per se, because the markets weren't dumping at that point. What happened was you were lied to. And if Burr was putting out false information and other senators and leaders were putting out false information, they were doing so to maintain this idea that the stock market would be unaffected and that it was still going strong. It's speculative. And so that's why it looked like everything was okay. But now he says that he was looking at what was happening in China. Ladies and gentlemen, he dumped his damn hotel stocks. Come on, people. I know there are a lot of Chinese tourists. I know that. But now, not even most of the tourists are Chinese. Not even most of them. But hey, it's America, right? I would love to know what your thoughts are about this. Leave a like in the comment below. Make sure you share this video. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell if you like that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Of course, if YouTube is giving you trouble, as it always does, you can download the Rockfin app and follow us there. Also, if you want to continue to help our show grow, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon and donate as little as $1. Really, anything helps. Other than that, always remember, people, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.